Stunning turnaround. Black worker exposed to humiliation transforms life as engineers are fired. In the heart of Atlanta, the offices of a prestigious engineering firm buzzed with the muted sounds of keyboards and murmured discussions. But beneath the surface lay a storm of internal struggle. Marcus, 28 and brimming with potential, found himself caught in a web of underestimation. His ideas, laden with innovative concepts for sustainable engineering, were brushed aside by senior engineers, men whose jokes rolled off tongues coated in privilege and prejudice. Each dismissive wave of their hands, each laughter-filled conversation, drove deeper the nails of self-doubt into Marcus's psyche. At his cluttered desk, surrounded by neglected blueprints and forgotten coffee cups, he could almost hear the echoes of his mother's voice, a retired nurse whose strength defined his upbringing. "Hard work pays off, Marcus," she would say, "don't let anyone dim your light." Yet, the thick air in the office suffocated hope. Despite his talents and dedication, inadequacy crept in like a shadow. He could feel it lurking, ready to consume his spirit, especially as his colleagues strolled confidently, their entitlement clinging to them like cologne. The tension stung with every day that passed. Marcus's heart raced as he sat silently in meetings, biting his tongue while ideas formed and faded like wisps of smoke. The fear of voicing what he knew to be right gripped him. He felt the weight of their disdain, the sneers that whispered of a man who had nothing new to contribute, a man whose intellect they deemed unworthy. The thought gnawed at him, lifetime ambitions dangling precariously as he questioned whether he truly belonged here. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the weeks dragged on, Marcus stumbled upon Mr. Davis, a wise figure from the firm's past. This gentle soul reignited a dwindling passion within. Under Mr. Davis's guidance, Marcus began to breathe life back into his innovative approaches. Each session with Mr. Davis opened up his mind, filled him with courage to rediscover his worth. Yet, with each moment of growth, fear tightened its grip around him, raising a paradox. With success came exposure, sharper scrutiny from the engineers who had sought to undermine him. Just as he believed he could turn the tide, an unsettling turn of events unfolded. A significant blunder from the senior team put the company's reputation at stake. As the panic set in, Marcus's heart raced in concert with the chaos. To his shock, he found himself thrust into the spotlight. A sudden chance to lead the project aimed at reparative engineering, a project he was uniquely suited for. Victory or demise rested upon his shoulders, and the stakes soared, staring down the faces of those who had mocked him. He felt a storm brewing inside, determination mixing heavily with dread. Would they recognize him now? Would he rise from the ashes of their scorn? Or would the years of humiliation come crashing back, smothering him once more? Breathing unevenly, he recalled his mother's resilience and found momentary strength. But as he approached the boardroom, the unnerving possibility of failure gripped him. Would he crumble under the pressure? Or could he finally transform a narrative marred by injustice into one of triumph? The air hummed with unspoken questions as Marcus prepared to confront the ghosts of his past, teetering on the brink of a revelation that could redefine his existence. As Marcus entered the boardroom, the atmosphere thickened with tension. The same engineers who had once laughed at his ideas now turned to him with scrutinizing eyes. The realization hit him. This was not just a presentation of his vision but a public trial of his resilience. He could feel the collective breath held as everyone braced for his next move. He grasped the edges of the podium, his palms slick with sweat. The projector flickered to life, illuminating his carefully constructed slides of innovative engineering designs. This was a leap of faith, a chance to challenge the very foundations of doubt that had been built around him. He cleared his throat, the room falling silent, and began. Today, we're faced with an opportunity to redefine our approach towards sustainable engineering. Our recent challenges weren't just errors, but indicators that we've strayed from innovation. It's time for a paradigm shift. The words poured out with a clarity he hadn't anticipated, bolstering his confidence. Each point he outlined echoed with intensity, pulling him deeper into a rhythm that felt both exhilarating and foreign. Yet, as he spoke, he could see their skepticism simmering. The engineers exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and condescension. A murmur rippled through the room as Marcus highlighted potential benefits and groundbreaking ideas. He pressed on, determined to dismantle their skepticism piece by piece. With each statistic and case study, he felt like a warrior arming himself for battle. But just as he reached a crescendo, a ripple of laughter erupted from the back of the room. Jason, one of the most dismissive engineers, decided to inject his venom. Innovative ideas. Huh? Maybe you should stick to calculations, Marcus. For a moment, Marcus faltered. The sting of ridicule reignited old insecurities. The laughter echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of every belittling remark. Panic surged, but so did a flicker of defiance. He considered the countless hours spent refining his designs, learning, and growing. Mentally, he surged ahead, ready to confront this hardened disbelief. Actually, Jason, strategic planning is critical, Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he felt. This isn't just about numbers. It's about changing the way we project ourselves as innovators. Surprised murmurs filled the room. He could sense the shift, a crack in the cold facade. Perhaps the tide was beginning to turn. Each subsequent question he fielded from the engineers felt less like an interrogation and more like an invitation to engage in dialogue. His confidence burgeoned, nourished by the realization that he was no longer alone in this room. Each challenge became a step towards redefining not just their project but his role within the firm. As the presentation wrapped up, an unexpected silence cloaked the room. He had presented not just technical elements but a vision for transformation that intertwined personal significance with professional ambition. The engineers exchanged glances, appreciation mingled with the lingering doubt of him being one of them. The air buzzed with unsaid thoughts, and for the first time he felt more like a leader than a subordinate. The meeting concluded, and as voices rose, Marcus felt the weight of their previous judgments lift. But just as he began to breathe a sigh of relief, the project head, Mr. Johnson, stepped forward, a stern look etched onto his face. Interesting ideas, Marcus, but innovation in our field comes with risks. Are you ready to handle the backlash if this doesn't pan out? A new challenge loomed before him, one that bore implications far beyond this meeting. The moment felt pivotal, a test of his own willingness to brave the consequences, regardless of the outcome. In that instant, he understood that his journey had only just begun. With a determined spark igniting in his chest, he met Mr. Johnson's gaze. With risks come the greatest rewards. I'm ready to lead this charge. As footsteps echoed away down the corridor, he felt uncertainty mingle with determination. But confidence filled the void of doubt. He was no longer just a participant in the engineering firm. He was an integral part of its future. But what would it take to solidify this newfound place? The challenges waiting outside the boardroom doors grew more daunting than ever, and within him, an all-consuming question brewed. How much was he willing to sacrifice to see his vision come to fruition? Emerging from the boardroom, Marcus found himself in the hushed atmosphere of the hallway, the echoes of his words still ringing in his ears. The adrenaline coursing through him was invigorating yet daunting. He had taken a gamble, but what now lay before him felt uncertain. Could he convince the team, the wider firm, and ultimately himself, that he was truly the leader they needed? As he walked toward his office, his mind was a whirlpool of thoughts. The laughter that had momentarily derailed him shifted into a reminder of the battles he had both fought and avoided. With each step, he weighed the risk Mr. Johnson had posed. What if his ideas fell flat? The mere thought sent a shiver of doubt through him. But another part of him, ignited by purpose, rebelled against that fear. No more hiding in the shadows of the engineers who deemed him simplistic. Upon entering his office, he closed the door and sank into his chair. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting stripes across his desk, illuminating various design schematics and reports stacked high around him. Each document became more than just a paper to review. It represented the time and dedication he had poured into his work. He needed to act. He had taken the lead in the meeting. Now it was time to assert that leadership in action. He opened his laptop and began drafting a follow-up email to the engineers, summarizing key points from his presentation and proposing a strategy session to address their concerns. This wouldn't just be a chance to solidify his ideas but a platform to foster collaboration, where he would listen to their insights and address their reservations. This would affirm both his concept and his place within the team. He could almost see it the moment where he would transform the skeptics into allies, creating a coalition for innovation. Halfway through the email, doubt crept back in. What if he framed this incorrectly? What if his peers interpreted his call for collaboration as desperation? Swallowing hard, he took a deep breath. His past decisions had been informed by fear. This time it had to be different. He revised the tone of his message, shifting it from a plea for approval to a confident invitation to innovate together. Before sending, he paused to reflect on the implications of his actions. Was he ready to usher in not just his ideas, but an entirely new ethos of transparency and teamwork within the firm? What if they combated his efforts? The thought of facing rejection again made his heart race. Yet wasn't that what growth demanded? Each risk had the potential to lead to greater rewards. With a deep breath, he hit send. His confidence seemed to ripple outward with that single click. As he stood to stretch, a realization washed over him. He was now a catalyst. He needed to prepare not just his mind but also his spirit for the challenges ahead. Climbing back into his work mindset, he began drafting a timetable and objectives for the upcoming strategy session. How could he best honor the expertise of his colleagues while advocating for his vision? A knock interrupted his focused thoughts. It was Maya, one of the project's lead engineers, with a look that was both inquisitive and contemplative. "Marcus, can we talk?" she asked, stepping into the room with a cautious air. Her presence stirred a mixture of anticipation and anxiety within him. Could she be a bridge between him and the others, or was she here to challenge his newfound authority? "Of course, Maya. What's on your mind?" But as she began to speak, Marcus felt the edges of his confidence fraying, like threads unraveling from the fabric of a carefully woven plan. Would he be able to hold onto the leadership role he had just begun to embrace? The undercurrents of the conversation hinted at deeper issues needing resolution, igniting his curiosity. What awaited him in this dialogue that felt like a harbinger of change? And so, he prepared to confront not only the challenges of his ideas but perhaps something more profound. The need to understand his colleagues as individuals with their own vulnerabilities and aspirations. Would this conversation fortify his position or unravel it completely? The room felt charged with potential as he braced himself for whatever revelation lay ahead. Maya stepped closer, the tension between them palpable. "I've been thinking about your ideas from the meeting," she began, her voice steady but her eyes betraying uncertainty. "There's a lot of potential, but I worry how they'll be received." Here was the moment Marcus realized. It was a chance to not only defend his vision but to understand the anfractuous concerns of his team. "What specific worries do you have?" he asked, taking care to sound open rather than defensive. Maya hesitated, clearly weighing her words. "The team is used to certain ways of working. It's comfortable. Your proposal shifts responsibilities, and I think there's fear of failure. No one wants to jeopardize the project, and that makes them resistant." He nodded, absorbing her insights. This was a pivotal point. Understanding the root of their resistance was essential for his leadership. "I get that. My aim is to create a more flexible approach that respects each person's expertise. We need to move towards innovation, not down a road of safety." A flicker of approval crossed Maya's face, but doubt still lingered. "And what if that move doesn't work? You said it yourself, you're going against the norm. What if they reject this idea entirely?" The challenge ignited a spark in Marcus. He had to confront the fear that shadowed both of them. Rejecting innovation out of fear is a mistake we can't afford. If we're all stuck in a cycle of "it's always been done this way," we lose the chance to grow. "But I can't lead this alone. I'll need the engineers on board. If we fail together and we learn from it. Maya considered his words, clearly processing the shift in his mindset. There's a risk to that, she said slowly, but also a chance for real progress. How do you plan to reassure them? Relief surged through Marcus. This conversation had taken a constructive turn. He smiled slightly, excitement bubbling beneath his skin. We start by inviting everyone to voice their concerns and ideas in this strategy session. I'll facilitate a discussion where they can express what's holding them back. Together, we can identify the obstacles and create a space for collaboration. Maya's expression softened. That's a good start. Her approval felt like a seal of legitimacy to his plan. I think the team will appreciate being heard. It might help ease their fears. Encouraged, Marcus felt the specter of doubt retreating. Let's craft a framework for this session. We need to approach it with transparency, emphasizing that exploration is a part of our process. Everyone needs to understand the why behind these changes. Agreed, she said, a newfound resolution glowing in her eyes. I can help get the engineers on board if they see you're willing to listen as much as led. As they dove into brainstorming ideas for the meeting format, Marcus felt a burgeoning clarity about his role. This was about more than just leadership. It was about creating a culture of inclusivity where innovation could flourish. He realized that by navigating their vulnerabilities, he could build a coalition strong enough to support not just his vision but also everyone's contributions. Before long, they had sketched an outline for the session, detailing discussion points and objectives, but a note of anxiety still curled in his stomach. What if his approach didn't resonate? The doubts gnawed, but he pushed them aside. Pioneering a new path required risk. The fear of failure had to be met with equal parts courage and faith in himself and in his colleagues. As the conversation began to wind down, Maya turned to him earnestly. Just remember, Marcus, the team is counting on you to stand firm against the internal pushback. Could get messy. He appreciated her candor. It ground his optimism with practicality. I understand, Maya, but the messy parts can lead to growth if we handle it carefully. It's going to take grit from all of us, but together we can forge a new direction. The weight of his resolve settled around him, and as Maya left the office, he glanced at the emails piling up in his inbox. He knew he needed to prepare for conversations with both allies and dissenters. The real test lay ahead, not merely in surviving criticism but in transforming it into a dialogue. Days loomed ahead, filled with the possibility of chaos or cooperation. Would he manage to foster an environment of innovation, or would his ambition crumble under the weight of skepticism? The strategy session was now his proving ground, where hope and uncertainty would clash. Marcus stared at the design schematics on his desk, now imbued with the promise of change. The first step toward his transformation, it seemed, was not about commanding authority but about nurturing collaboration. How would they react when faced with his vision? The apprehension crept back, raising the stakes as he prepared for one of the most critical moments of his career. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the imminent confrontation. Would he find the support he desperately sought, or would he be met with the same doubts that had haunted him for so long? The answer awaited in the coming showdown, one that could redefine not just his career, but his entire notion of what it meant to lead. Marcus spent the following days preparing for the strategy session, a gathering he thought could either launch him into a new realm of collaboration or plunge him deeper into rejection. The more he reviewed his notes, the more he recognized a vital truth. He couldn't simply lead. He had to engage. Each point on the agenda felt less like a tactical maneuver and more like a bridge to his team's anxieties and desires. In the quiet moments before the meeting, he envisioned how it would unfold. Would he stand up front, commanding attention with graphs and data, or would he sit among them, fostering an atmosphere of shared ownership? He imagined himself facilitating discussions, leaning in to listen rather than just instructing. The day of the session arrived, and Marcus entered the conference room with an unusual mix of confidence and trepidation. The room buzzed with a cocktail of energy and skepticism. He could almost see the unspoken questions floating in the air. As team members took their seats, he caught Maya's encouraging nod from the back. That flicker of support fortified him. He opened with a candid acknowledgement of their apprehension. Change, by nature, raises uncertainty. I want this space to be a safe place for us to ask difficult questions, raise concerns, and ultimately explore how we can advance together. As Marcus spoke, he tried to hone in on a balance of authority and approachability. He presented the vision but immediately turned the floor over to his colleagues. Let us take this opportunity to share our thoughts. What fears do you have about the new direction? The silence was almost overwhelming at first, thick with tension. Then, as if obeying an unspoken cue, someone voiced their worry. What if we're stretching ourselves too thin? There's a lot at stake, you know? The room filled with murmurs of agreement, and Marcus felt a jolt of anxiety surge through him. This was the moment he had anticipated. Instead of shutting down the fear, he leaned into it. That's a valid concern. Let us unpack that. What specifically makes you feel that way? As discussions blossomed, each team member unveiled their own layers of apprehension: fear of failure, fear of loss of control, fear that their contributions might not matter in this new structure. Marcus listened with intent, reflecting on how the weight of their worries mirrored his own hesitations. He realized he wasn't just addressing the team's doubts. He was confronting his own vulnerability in the process. The meeting stretched on, creating a tapestry of perspectives. By actively facilitating, Marcus unearthed a unique energy. Their pain points became stepping stones. Instinctively, he began to relate each concern back to the shared goals, revealing the interconnectedness of their roles. If we create space for innovation, we're not abandoning our responsibilities. We're enhancing them. This is about evolution, not exclusion. The atmosphere shifted. He noticed a subtle change as hesitant faces transformed. Some even nodded in recognition. It struck him that vulnerability was contagious. By embracing the discomfort of their fears, he was weaving a narrative about resilience and adaptability. As the session concluded, Marcus felt the exhilaration of shared purpose humming in the room. They had begun to coalesce around the idea of progress, united by a common goal rather than separated by their aversions. But he realized he had only scratched the surface. What surprised him most was his own emerging clarity. This journey was not singularly about rallying support. It was also about reshaping his identity as a leader. He had felt the weight of expectation, but now he saw an opportunity for collaboration that transcended mere compliance. Yet, in the moment of triumph, a nagging thought crept in. Would this fragile momentum hold? He sensed that not every team member was convinced. Skeptics lingered. As he prepared to retreat from the room, he spotted Jackson, a longtime engineer known for his critical voice, standing in the corner. The guarded expression on Jackson's face hinted at an unresolved battle. The biggest resistance might still lie ahead. Marcus had turned a page, but the narrative was far from finished. How could he address the doubts of the most resistant? The moment of truth was upon him. The tension in the conference room lingered like smoke from a dying ember, and Marcus's heart raced as he contemplated his next move. Jackson's presence, a mix of skepticism and discontent, aimed like an arrow at Marcus's burgeoning confidence. He had successfully opened the dialogue, but now he faced a critical test. He couldn't evade Jackson's doubts if he wanted to solidify the progress he had just initiated. Marcus, Jackson finally spoke, his voice cutting through the hushed murmurs. While I appreciate the effort to create a more open environment, the reality is change isn't just a matter of conversation. It's about delivery and results. How can we be sure this will work? The bluntness of Jackson's words pierced through the optimistic haze that Marcus had been floating in. He could feel every pair of eyes shifting toward him, almost demanding an answer. Familiar anxiety bubbled within him, but he harnessed it. This wasn't a moment to deflect or dodge. It was a moment to confront. I understand your frustration, Jackson, Marcus replied, leaning slightly forward to convey sincerity. What specifically concerns you about our plans? Let us talk through it. Jackson crossed his arms, his expression unyielding. We've seen initiatives like this fizzle out before. We're a team grounded in engineering logic, not just hopes and dreams. If we're going to change our approach, we need to know that it's based on data and results. Marcus took a slow breath, reflecting on Jackson's perspective. He had always viewed innovation as a blend of vision and instinct, but Jackson was reminding him of the critical necessity of empirical support. "You're right," he said, letting the admission settle. "We must bridge the gap between our aspirations and tangible outcomes. What would make you feel more secure in this transition?" As the conversation unfolded, Marcus found himself weaving a thread between Jackson's concerns and the rest of the team's fears. He began to outline a framework where their ongoing feedback could shape their efforts, emphasizing accountability. "Let us set up a series of metrics, clear benchmarks we can revisit regularly. This way we can assess our progress together, ensuring that our fears are addressed, and that we adapt if necessary." Jackson's demeanor softened, but his wariness remained. "Metrics can only do so much if we don't engage with them. We need commitment from everyone, not just lip service during these meetings." That was the key point, a line drawn in the sand that Marcus knew he needed to address. "You're absolutely right. We can create all the metrics in the world, but without genuine engagement from each team member, they become meaningless. I'll rely on you and others to challenge us, to keep us accountable. Let us build this structure together." For the first time, Marcus saw a flicker of hope in Jackson's guarded expression. It was a small shift, but it suggested a willingness to consider collaboration rather than outright rejection. As the meeting came to a close, Marcus felt the momentum of the discussion with Jackson absorbing into the collective. He had gone from merely addressing fears to inviting concrete solutions, a paradigm shift in his leadership style that seemed to resonate deeply. Yet, doubt clung to him as a whisper in the back of his mind. Was this real progress, or merely a foundation built on shifting sands? As the room began to clear, Marcus knew he needed to solidify his next steps. How could he maintain this fragile sense of unity and purpose? He recalled that the heart of any endeavor lay in relationships, especially with someone as critical as Jackson. With one silent glance across the room, Marcus realized he would have to confront the wounds of the past if he truly wanted to transform the future. A new determination settled within him, a blend of anxiety and excitement. What would it take to turn this tentative agreement into lasting trust? The unanswered question loomed large as he caught Jackson's eye once more, wondering how much further this journey could challenge both of them. The real work was just beginning, and Marcus could sense that he was on the brink of a pivotal breakthrough or the edge of an insurmountable rift. The week unfolded with a relentless pace, each day feeling like a test of Marcus's emerging leadership. The gravity of the conference room discussion with Jackson had sparked something profound within him, a realization that driving change required more than mere intention. It demanded action, reflection, and the willingness to confront his own limitations. As he sat at his desk, Marcus typed out an email to the team, aiming to synthesize their discussions into actionable items. He organized thoughts on specific metrics and key performance indicators that would guide their progression. Yet, as he hit send, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Would the team see this as another sterile exercise in bureaucracy? In an effort to further engage his colleagues, he decided to initiate informal one-on-one sessions throughout the week. Each meeting represented an opportunity to listen to their thoughts directly, gather insights, and build personal connections. He recognized that real change was grounded in relationships, especially with skeptical individuals like Jackson. The interactions began to reshape his understanding of their group dynamic. In the first meeting with Sophia, she articulated her frustrations about the lack of visible progress on projects. "I feel like we're just spinning our wheels, Marcus," she said, her tone caught between impatience and hope. It was a sentiment he had heard echoed in the conference room, and it stung. This wasn't just about metrics. It was about their collective vitality. He promised her he would address the immediate concerns during the next team meeting, and they collaborated on a plan to highlight smaller milestones to restore motivation. In his next session with Jackson, Marcus felt the weight of anticipation. "I know you think this can go sideways," Marcus began, choosing his words with care, "but I believe we can take tangible steps to build confidence. What genuinely needs to change for you to feel secure moving forward?" Jackson hesitated, weighing his words. "I need to see commitment. If we discuss improvement but fail to follow through, that's just disappointing. I don't want to get caught in another round of empty promises. Instead of feeling defensive, Marcus absorbed the critique as an opportunity. What would you suggest we implement that guarantees commitment? The inquiry lingered, and Jackson's eyes narrowed slightly as he pondered. As they began crafting potential solutions together, Marcus recognized the shift. This was no longer about him convincing Jackson, but about genuine collaboration. The following days featured a series of collective brainstorming sessions, allowing the team to visualize progress. They wrote ideas on sticky notes and placed them on the wall, tangible outputs that made abstract concepts real. Each interaction filled Marcus with a growing sense of clarity and purpose. He caught glimpses of engagement sparking among his colleagues, which fed his hope. However, during a particularly revealing session, Marcus stumbled upon a deeper undercurrent of discontent, a shared skepticism about his past decisions and how they had contributed to the team's stagnation. He felt the charge of defensiveness rise within him. Yet, as he breathed through the moment, he recognized that avoidance wouldn't foster trust but only widen the chasm. Let us address this directly, he announced, meeting their gazes frankly. I acknowledge I've made missteps. I can't change the past, but I want to work to earn your trust moving forward. The honesty of his admission nourished a profound shift among his team. A release filled the room, and for the first time, he saw glimmers of empathy in their expressions. Encouraged by this breakthrough, Marcus planned a roundtable to openly discuss their past grievances. But as he prepared, a familiar fear arose. What if delving into issues merely reopened old wounds? What if he couldn't guide the conversation toward healing? The moment loomed as he stood before the group, uncertain yet resolute. Today, he began nervously, we confront our shared history to carve out a future we can all commit to. Trust is built through transparency, even when it feels uncomfortable. With their past behind them, the way to the future lay ahead. But still, a creeping question shadowed his thoughts. Would they rise above their history, or would it forever impede their progress? As the group settled, breathing heavy with unspoken tension, Marcus scanned the faces before him, searching for signs of readiness. He knew that honesty could be a double-edged sword. While it could liberate them, it might also tear old wounds wide open. He stood at the crossroads of vulnerability and authority, acutely aware that his next words would either fortify or fracture their fragile trust. Let us take a moment to reflect on our past, he began slowly, drawing from the silence. I want to hear your perspectives. What went wrong, and how can we learn from it together? The room remained still for a moment, the air thick with hesitation. Then, one by one, the team members began to share. Each revelation dripped with a mix of candor and bitterness, threading through personal grievances about tight deadlines and lack of support. Marcus listened intently, noting specific patterns. Miscommunication, a lack of clarity, and above all, a stark absence of leadership commitment. This has become a cycle of frustration, Laura articulated, her words biting. We need to feel that our input matters, not just in theory, but in practice. With each critique, Marcus felt the rope of self-doubt tighten, but instead of recoiling, he leaned into it. You're right, he admitted, acknowledging the hurt and disenchantment in their voices. I've been too focused on the metrics without considering the human element. This must change, starting with me. As he accepted their feedback, an internal shift began to occur. He realized that transparency wasn't just about admitting missteps. It was about actively inviting the team into the solutions. He began to formulate a plan not merely to respond to grievances but to cultivate a culture of mutual accountability. A thought struck him. What if we implement a regular feedback loop? A structure where your voices can be consistently heard. He noticed nods around the room. Engagement sparked as discussions emerged spontaneously about ideas they'd considered but never felt empowered to share. Days turned into weeks, and the feedback loop began to take form, systematically ingraining itself into the team's workflow. They introduced regular check-ins, project updates, and open forums that allowed everyone to voice concerns and celebrate progress. With each passing meeting, relationships strengthened, and an electrifying current of collaboration began to energize their efforts. However, shadows loomed as success was often tainted by lingering skepticism, especially from Jackson. He had started participating more but remained distant, his posture rigid during discussions. Marcus recalled Jackson's earlier words about commitment, and a knot of pressure formed in his stomach. Marcus scheduled a follow-up meeting with him, an intimate tête-à-tête away from the group's watchful eyes. As they sat across from each other, Marcus could feel the weight of unaddressed tension permeating the air. "Jackson," he said earnestly, "I see you trying, but I also sense there's something holding you back. Can we talk about it?" With a long sigh, Jackson's facade cracked. "I want to trust this process," he replied slowly, "but how can I when every previous effort felt half-hearted? I need assurance that we're not just going through motions." Marcus leaned forward, heart racing. "I can promise you this. My commitment is not an empty promise. I'll work with you and the team to create something lasting, but I need your support too. We're in this together." Jackson's expression softened marginally, and a flicker of something hope perhaps crossed his features. "If I see real change, I'll step in. We need this to be different." As they parted ways, an inherent challenge settled in Marcus's heart. Would he be able to uphold his end of the bargain? The essence of true leadership was being tested, and the gravitational pull of doubt surged in his mind. He returned to his desk, pen in hand, committed to drafting new strategies, tangible, visible commitments. However, nagging insecurity whispered in the back of his mind. Was he merely crafting another set of promises destined for disappointment? He had to face the biggest test yet. If he faltered, would their fledgling trust shatter? The time had come to confront his own leadership style, to dig deeper into his vulnerabilities, and to ensure he could genuinely meet the expectations he had set for himself and his team. Would he ignite a movement towards sustainable change, or would his fears dictate the outcome? Only time would reveal the answer. As Marcus prepared for the upcoming team meeting, he felt an undercurrent of anxiety weaving through his thoughts. The last conversation with Jackson lingered, prompting him to scrutinize his own actions and attitudes. The stakes were higher now. No longer could he afford to falter. He took a deep breath, trying to anchor himself amid the whirlpool of uncertainty. He rearranged the notes on his desk, listing strategies meant to foster trust and transparency. Yet as he reviewed them, a gnawing sensation returned, questioning his ability to enact genuine change. Were these merely buzzwords he was throwing around, or did he truly have the capability to inspire transformation? The meeting began with an unexpected twist. As they gathered, he noticed Jackson leaning forward, eyes fixed intensely on Marcus. It struck him a glimmer of encouragement flickered in Jackson's expression, a silent reinforcement that perhaps, just maybe, they were moving in the right direction. "Today, I want us to focus on our wins, however small," Marcus announced, his voice steady, masking his inner turmoil. The team hesitated, unsure how to respond. It was a shift from their usual, critically focused discussions. Still, as he encouraged them to share moments of success, a gentle thaw seemed to spread through the atmosphere. Laura spoke first, recounting a small yet impactful project she had led with minimal oversight, where her team not only met their deadline but exceeded expectations. Her excitement was palpable, infectious even. Others began to follow suit, sharing anecdotes about collaboration and innovation that sparked creativity. As these stories unfolded, the earlier tension began to dissipate, replaced by a rhythmic pulse of optimism. In that moment, something within Marcus shifted. The realization hit him with a jolt. Leadership wasn't just about steering the ship. It was about recognizing the power of the crew. Empowering each member to take pride in their contributions fostered an environment where trust could flourish. Still, even amid this progress, an unsettling worry loomed. He needed to address his doubts and Jackson's lingering skepticism. After the meeting wrapped up, Marcus approached Jackson once more. "I appreciate your input today. How did it feel?" Jackson crossed his arms, reflecting. "That was different. Felt lighter. But I still worry. What if we keep this momentum for a while and then fall back into our old ways?" That looming skepticism again stirred something within Marcus's gut. It wasn't enough to evoke excitement momentarily. They needed consistency, a genuine fabric woven from integrity and accountability. "That's a fair point," Marcus conceded, feeling the weight of his own promise. What if we set benchmarks together? Regular reviews to track our improvements? It will encompass not just our projects but how we're working as a team. Jackson paused, studying Marcus closely, a flicker of consideration crossing his features. That could work. But we need clear outcomes, and you need to be open to feedback even on your leadership. No more empty promises. The thought resonated deeply within Marcus. He was on the precipice of true development, but he had to be transparent about his own learning process. You're right. I have to model the kind of commitment I expect. I will take ownership of this journey. With a newfound resolve, Marcus returned to his desk. The trepidation still lingered, but it mingled with a burgeoning sense of purpose. He drafted a plan for their benchmarks, detailing metrics that accounted for both productivity and team satisfaction. The clock ticked in rhythm with his heartbeat, each minute passing as he crafted document after document, outlining how change would happen not just through words, but actionable steps. He felt the gravity of responsibility settle upon him. It was time to walk the walk. He leaned back, feeling the tension blend with anticipation. This was his moment, one that would define not just his role, but the very essence of their cohesive growth. If they could navigate this inherent ambivalence and turn it to their advantage, what might they achieve together? But as the documentation piled up, a frightening thought crept in: what if the necessary trust and accountability turned out to be fleeting? As Marcus gazed out the window, contemplating the road ahead, a sense of urgency pushed him forward. How could he ensure this shift wasn't just a momentary phenomenon, but the dawn of a sustainable mission? The next steps demanded clarity. Marcus had to confront the inexplicable doubts lurking in his mind, not only for himself but for the team, as they edged ever closer to the precipice of real change. What awaited them on the other side? Would the growing trust solidify, or fall apart beneath the weight of unrealized expectations? In the days that followed the team meeting, Marcus experienced a profound transformation. The momentum created by their open dialogue fueled his confidence, shifting him from a tentative leader to one who was recognized for his commitment to collaboration. He approached each day with renewed energy, understanding that true leadership radiates from the willingness to embrace both accountability and empathy. As he continued to develop metrics that supported team feedback, he also initiated weekly check-ins dedicated to discussing not just project statuses, but personal reflections on challenges faced. This strategy transformed the dynamic within the team. They began to view one another not just as colleagues but as allies working towards common goals. The culmination of these efforts came during a follow-up meeting. Marcus stood at the head of the table, the energy in the room palpably different than it had been weeks ago. Now, he faced a united front of colleagues who were engaged and invested in the project. Maya, who had initially approached him with trepidation, had become an essential advocate for this new direction. She shared her insights on how their approach had shifted, highlighting that their success wasn't merely about achieving the next deliverable, but about creating a culture of inclusivity that sparked creativity. As Marcus led the session, he felt buoyed by his colleagues' enthusiasm. They celebrated their recent triumph of winning a small contract that relied upon the innovative techniques they had been diligently developing. The recognition from senior management had validated their hard work, and Marcus could finally feel the weight of old doubts lifting. He had succeeded in redefining not just how they operated as a team but how he saw himself within it. In a bold move, he invited Jackson to present his thoughts on the project's future. Acknowledging Jackson's critical perspective had only strengthened their resolve. Jackson accepted the invitation, standing with newfound conviction as he laid out a vision for scaling their innovations across different departments within the firm. The respect in the room was palpable, a testament to the evolution that had taken place. As the discussion flowed, Marcus realized how far he had come. He had transformed from a man weighed down by ridicule to one who had proven his capabilities through grit and resilience. The engineers who once dismissed him were now echoing his ideas, reinforcing the framework of innovation they were building. It felt surreal. He had not only conquered his fears but had also woven his voice into the fabric of their collective identity. Their next project loomed on the horizon, and the team was eager to undertake it together. This time, Marcus felt prepared to lead with confidence rather than hesitation. His weekly check-ins and open dialogues had created an environment of trust, where every member felt valued and heard. With a solidified leadership style that embraced transparency and collaboration, the former underdog was officially a key player in reshaping the firm's culture. Marcus's journey hadn't merely been about surviving in a challenging work environment. It was about thriving through personal development. His growth manifested not just in improved teamwork, but in the recognition he received from management. They began to view him as a leader with insight and foresight, someone who had turned adversity into a launching pad for innovation in reflective moments. Marcus considered his mother's wisdom. He had indeed not let anyone dim his light. He had amplified it. With his innovative strategies gaining traction, and his colleagues supporting him wholeheartedly, he became the embodiment of resilience, one who had demonstrated that perseverance conquers prejudice. As he prepared to present the team's findings to the firm's board, he felt a solid confidence within him. He was no longer just operating on the fringes of his potential. He had claimed his rightful space at the table. Here was Marcus, not at the mercy of scrutiny but standing as a beacon of progress. With his past behind him, he was poised to forge a future built on trust and mutual respect. This transformation had cemented a pivotal realization within him. True leadership is rooted in collective strength, and he was, without a doubt, leading a team capable of remarkable achievements. It's your turn to be a part of this remarkable journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your support shapes the future of personal overcoming stories.